It's me Jenny and welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to show you how to knit this very simple fair Isle beanie. The tutorial that I'm going to be showing you, it's going to be size newborn up to 3 months old. So I have few beanie made right here and they are all the same pattern, but as you can see they all come out in different sizes. It is because the yarn that I use, they are all medium weight yarn number 4, but it's in different brand. Maybe you might already know that some worsted weight yarn come in thinner side and some in thicker side. Okay, so this is how it looks like, and for this tutorial I'm going to show you how to knit this beanie, and this is how the inside looks like, and this is what we call the float. So as we knit the fair Isle, we're going to loosen up this float right here. I'm going to show you how to do this in the tutorial, and by loosening up the float a little bit, you'll have a very good stretch of beanie. Okay, so the measurement around it is 11 inches, but you can stretch this up to 16 inches, but of course it depends on what kind of yarn you use. Some yarn will give you a very good stretch and some not really. Okay, so the measurement, as I mentioned, 11 inches around the circumference, but you can stretch up to 16 inches. And the top all the way down, it is 5 inches. Okay, so without further ado, let's start. Okay, so what you need to knit this beanie are, you need two kind of knitting needles. So this one right here, this is 4.5 millimeters circular needle. It is 16 inches long. So this needle is to knit up the ribbing and the body of the beanie. So once it's time to decrease, we're going to switch to 4.5 millimeter double pointed needle. So preferable if you have 5 pieces of this DPNs needle. So you also need tapestry needle, stitch marker, and also scissors to cut your yarn. And now for the yarns, the yarn that I'm going to be using for this tutorial, there will be two colors, so color A and color B. So color A, this is the main color. This is Vanna Choice by Lion Brand. For the solid color, it is 100% acrylic. It is medium weight yarn number 4 and the colorway is mustard. And for color B, this is just a Red Hat Super Saver yarn. Okay, so if you don't have Vanna Choice, you can use any medium weight yarn number 4 that you have. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so now we're going to start to cast on. And the cast on method that I'm going to use in this tutorial is the long tail cast on, and you want to leave about 40 inches long tail. And if you're not sure how to cast on using long tail cast on method, you can search in YouTube on how to do this long tail cast on. Okay, so you're going to cast on 44 stitches. So right here I already have 2 stitches and 3 and 4. So you're going to continue cast on until you get 44 stitches. Now once you cast on all 44 stitches, now grab your stitch marker and place it at the right side of the needle, where the working yarn is, right here. And now you're going to stretch the yarn and make sure it's not twisted, and stretch it all the way to the end of the needle tips. Okay, now we're going to join and we're going to knit in circle, knit around. So we're going to do ribbing, knit 2 and purl 2. Okay, so we're going to knit 2, this 1 and 2. Now we're going to purl 2 stitch, 1, and it's going to stretch a little bit, and 2. So now we're going to do knit 2, 1, 2 and purl 2, 1 and 2. Now you're going to repeat this knit 2 and purl 2 until you reach the very last stitch or until you reach the stitch marker. Okay, so once you're almost at the end of the round, the last 2 stitch you should end with purl stitch. So 2 purl stitch, 1 and 2. Okay, so we're done with round 1. Now just slip the stitch marker to the right side of the needle. So now we're going to continue the ribbing, knit 2 and purl 2. So we're done with round 1. Now we're going to do round 2, knit 2 and purl 2. So the ribbing is going to be until round 7. Okay, so go ahead and finish up, knit the ribbing round until round 7. So the ribbing, as I mentioned, knit 2 and purl 2. Okay, so I'll meet you at the end of round 7. Okay, so once you're done, knit until round 7. So we're just gonna loosen all the stitches, and this is how it looks like, unstretched. Okay, I really love this Vanna Choice yarn. It really gives you the stretch. Okay, so now we're going to start round 8. So for round 8 we're going to make 1 stitch increase. So we're going to knit the first stitch, this stitch right here, knit 1. So next we're going to do 1 stitch extra, that's when we're going to do increase. So we're going to pull this yarn right here, this strand, and slide it to the left side of the needle. And now we're going to knit at the back of this stitch. Okay, we're going to knit at the back, and now we made 1 stitch extra. So for round 8 we have 45 stitches after we did the 1 stitch increase. Okay, so now go ahead and knit the rest of the stitches, and I'll meet you at the end of the round. Okay, so once you're done with round 8, so for round 9 we're going to start the fair isles. So grab your color B. Right here is my red yarn. Okay, so we're going to start by knit 2. We're going to knit the first 2 stitch, 1 and 2. So next we grab color B, the red yarn, and just leave a little bit tail for you to weave in ends. So we're going to knit the 3rd stitch using the red yarn or color B. Okay, slide it there. Now we're going to leave the color B at the back. Now we're going to knit 4 using color A. Knit 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to knit color B 1 stitch. So grab the working yarn of color B and knit 1. Okay, so after you knit, it is very important for you to loosen up the float at the back right here and make sure it is not too tight. If it is too tight, you won't be able to stretch the beanie as much. Okay, now we're going to knit color A 4. Gonna knit 4 stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to knit 1 of the color B, 1 stitch, and every time after you knit color B, make sure to loosen up a little bit at the back. Okay, so now we're going to repeat. Knit 4 of the color A, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to knit 1 of color B. Okay, and loosen up at the back. Okay, so knit 4 of color A, 1, 2, 3, 4, and knit 1 of color B. So there's another way on how to use to knit using both finger, left and right. This is how I normally knit, but if you're a beginner, I suggest you not to use this method, because by using this technique you're going to pull the yarn and it's going to be tighter instead of looser. So always loosen up the yarn at the back. Okay, so now we're going to repeat. Knit 4 of color A and knit 1 of color B. Okay, so you're going to knit and follow the color sequence until you have 2 stitches left before the stitch marker. Okay, so I'll see you once you're done. Okay, so once you're done, repeat the sequence of knit 4 of color A and knit 1 of color B. You should have 2 stitches left. Now knit those 2 stitches using color A or your main color. Okay, so once you're done, slip the stitch marker to the right side of the needle. Okay, so for the next round, round 10 and round 11, these both round, we're just going to knit around using the main color, color A. Okay, so knit all the stitches for round 10 and 11. Okay, so once you knit round 10 and 11, now we're going to do round 12. So slip the stitch marker to the right needle. Now we're going to knit the first stitch with color B. Okay, knit 1 with color B, and don't forget to loosen up the float at the back a little bit. Now we're going to knit 4 with color A, which is the main color. So 2, 3 and 4. So next we're going to knit 1 with color B, and don't forget to loosen up the float at the back just a little bit. Okay, so now knit 4 with color A, 3, 4, and knit 1 with color B. Okay, go ahead and finish up round 12. Repeat knit 4 of color A and knit 1 of color B until you have 4 stitches left before the stitch marker. And as you knit, don't forget to loosen up the float at the back so there's enough space for you to stretch the beanie. Okay, so I'll see you at the end. Okay, so once you only have 4 stitches left, now we're going to knit all these 4 stitches with the main color, color A, and at the very last stitch, this last stitch, we're going to carry the float right here. We're not going to knit color B, we're just going to twist it at the back to carry along as we knit so that the color B is close to the stitch marker. Okay, so just pull color A under color B and knit color A like this. So as you can see, this color B is near to the stitch marker. Okay, so for the next two round 13 and round 14, you're just going to knit all 45 stitches. Okay, so go ahead and finish up round 13 and 14, and I'll meet you at the end of round 14. Okay, so once you're done, knit round 13 and 14. Now round 15, we're going to do the fair isle, and we're going to do exactly same as round 9. So we're going to first knit 2 stitch of the main color, color A. Knit 2, 1, 2, and we're going to knit 1 stitch with color B. And don't forget to loosen up the float at the back. Now knit 4 with color A, 2, 3, 4, and knit 1 with color B. And loosen up the float. Okay, so go ahead and finish up round 15. Knit 4 stitch with color A and knit 1 stitch with color B. Okay, so after you finish round 15, round 16 and round 17, you're going to knit all stitches. Round 18, you're going to repeat round 12. Round 19, 20, knit all stitches, and round 21 is going to be the last round of fair isles, and you're going to repeat round 9. Okay, so I'll meet you at the end of round 21. Now once you're done with round 21, so the fair isles round is at round 9, 12, 15, 18, and round 21. Okay, so once you're done with round 21, we're going to cut color B. Just cut enough for you to weave in ends. Okay, so now we're going to start round 22. For round 22, we're just going to knit all 45 stitches. Okay, so go ahead, finish up, and I'll meet you at the end of round 22. Okay, so once you're done with round 22, for round 23 we're going to do 1 stitch decrease, so we're going to make it total 44 stitches. So we're going to knit 1. Next we're going to knit 2 stitch together, this 2 stitch, going to knit both stitch together. Okay, so now go ahead and knit the rest of the stitches. Okay, so by the end of round 23 you should have total of 44 stitches. Now once you're done with round 23, for the next round, round 24, we're going to transfer all the stitches to double pointed needle, and we're going to do decrease as well, 4 stitch decrease. Now remove the stitch marker. Now we're going to, for the first double pointed needle, we're going to knit 9 and knit 2 stitch together. So we're going to knit 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now we're going to knit 2 stitch together, this 2 stitch. Okay, so the first double pointed needle you should have 10 stitches on the needle. So for the second double pointed needle we're going to do the same, knit 9 and knit 2 stitch together. Okay, knit 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now knit 2 stitch together, just 2 stitch. Okay, so for the second double pointed needle, you should have 10 stitches on the needle as well. So now you're going to repeat the same for double pointed needle number 3 and number 4. So once you're done with round 24, there should be a total of 40 stitches, and there should be 10 stitches for each double pointed needle. Okay, so I'll meet you at the end of round 24. Okay, so once you make your last decrease, so this is the last decrease for double pointed number 4. So for round 24, you should have total of 40 stitches, and you should have 10 stitches per double pointed needle. Okay, so if you're confused where's the start and end of this beanie, your working yarn should be at the same row as the tail right here. Okay, so it has to be, so you know where is the start and the end of every round. Okay, so for the next round, round 25, we're going to knit all stitches, so there's no decrease for round 25. So go ahead and knit all 40 stitches, and I'll meet you at the end of round 25. Okay, so just a note, once you reach the end of every double pointed needle, you're just going to continue the next needle. Okay, just slide all the stitches to the center of the double pointed needle and continue with the next needle. Okay, so I'll see you once you're done. Okay, so once you're done with round 25, as I mentioned, you know you're at the end of the round if your working yarn is at the same line with the tail. Okay, so for round 26, we're going to do 4 stitch decrease. So for each needle, you're going to knit 8 and knit 2 stitch together. We're going to do decrease for all 4 stitches. Okay, so for the double pointed needle number 1, we're going to knit 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we're going to knit 2 stitch together. Okay, so for double pointed number 1, you should have 9 stitches on the needle. So needle number 2, knit 8 and knit 2 stitch together as well. Okay, so you're going to repeat the same for all 4 needles, knit 8 and knit 2 stitch together. Okay, so by the end of the round 26, you should have total of 36 stitches, and you should have 9 stitch per double pointed needle. Okay, so I'll meet you at the end of round 26. Now once you're done with round 26, just double check your working yarn is at the same line as the tail right here, so that way you know that you're at the end of the round. So for the next round, round 27, you're just going to knit around, knit all the stitches around, knit all 36 stitches. Okay, so go ahead and finish up round 27, and I'll meet you at the end of the round. Now once you're done with round 27, so for the next round, round 28, we're going to make 4 stitch decrease. So each needle we're going to knit 7 stitch and knit 2 stitch together, and you're going to do the same for the rest of the needle. Okay, so we're going to start, going to knit 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now we're going to knit 2 stitch together. So for double pointed number 1, you should have 8 stitches. Now we're going to repeat the same for needle number 2, knit 7 and knit 2 stitch together. Okay, repeat for all the needle, knit 7 and knit 2 stitch together. By the end of the round 28, you should have total of 32 stitches around, and you should have 8 stitches per double pointed needle. Okay, so I'll meet you at the end of round 28. Now once you're done with round 28, you should have 32 stitches around, and you should have 8 stitches per double pointed needle. Okay, now we're going to start round 29. For round 29, we're going to knit 6 and knit 2 stitch together, and we're going to do the same for every double pointed needle. Okay, so we're going to start with knit 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and knit 2 stitch together. Okay, so for double pointed needle number 1, you should have 7 stitches. Now we're going to repeat the same for all double pointed needle, knit 6 and knit 2 stitch together. And by the end of round 29, you should have 28 stitches, and you should have 7 stitches per double pointed needle. Okay, so once you're done with round 29, now we're going to start round 30. We're going to knit 5 and knit 2 stitch together, and we're going to do the same for every double pointed needle. Okay, so this is the first needle. We're going to knit 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and knit 2 stitch together. Okay, so for each double pointed needle for round 30, you should have 6 stitch. So now repeat the same, knit 5 and knit 2 stitch together for every double pointed needle. So by the end of round 30, you should have 24 stitches around, and you should have 6 stitches per double pointed needle. Okay, so go ahead and finish up round 30, and I'll meet you once you're done. Once you're done with round 30, you should have 24 stitches around. Now we're going to start round 31. We're going to knit 4 and knit 2 stitch together. Okay, so knit 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 and knit 2 stitch together. Now for the second double pointed needle, we're going to do the same, knit 4 and knit 2 stitch together. 1, 2, 3, 4 and knit 2 stitch together. Now double pointed number 3, knit 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 and knit 2 stitch together. Now the last double pointed needle for round 31, knit 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 and knit 2 stitch together. Okay, so done with round 31, you should have 20 stitches around. Now we're going to start round 32. Round 32, we're going to knit 3 and knit 2 stitch together. Okay, 1, 2, 3 and knit 2 stitch together. So for each double pointed needle, you should have 4 stitches. Okay, so this is double pointed number 2, 1, 2, 3 and knit 2 stitch together. Double pointed needle number 3, knit 3, 1, 2, 3 and knit 2 stitch together. Now next, double pointed number 4, the last one, knit 3, 1, 2, 3, and knit 2 stitch together. Okay, so done with round 32, you should have 16 stitches around and 4 stitches per needle. Okay, so we're going to start round 33, and round 33 is the last round for this beanie. We're going to knit 2, 1, 2, and knit 2 stitch together. So needle number 2, going to knit 2, 1, 2, and knit 2 stitch together. Needle number 3, knit 2, 1, 2, and knit 2 stitch together. So the last needle, needle number 4, knit 2, 1, 2, and knit 2 stitch together. So for round 33, you should have total of 12 stitches around and 3 stitch per double pointed needle. Now we're done. Cut the yarn. Okay, now grab your needle, the tapestry needle. So now we're going to slide all the stitches on the double pointed needle to the tapestry needle. Okay, just slide all 12 stitches. Okay, so there you have it. This is how I knit this very simple fair Isle beanie. As I mentioned earlier, if you loosen up the float at the back a little bit, you'll have a very good stretch. Okay, and this is using medium weight yarn number 4, but of course, as you might already know, all medium weight yarn number 4 has different size. So this is a Vanna Choice. You can decorate this beanie with pom-pom or without pom-pom. It's really up to you. So I do hope you find this tutorial easy to follow. If you have any question, leave your question at the comment section down below. I will try my very best to reply. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Share this video with your fellow friends. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you have not already. That way you won't miss any of my future upload. And also don't forget to follow me on social media, Facebook and Instagram. Okay, so for now, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care everyone. God bless and bye.